I've got a little bit, maybe first of all, a little bit about me. The image you maybe saw in the slides before are very old, so I've created my own, and you can see me in the camera. What do I do? I'm a senior M365 consultant at Communardo. I have about 10 years of SharePoint and Microsoft experience. I'm 32 years old, soon to be father, and I love music. I love American football, play it myself, and season is on, so yeah, good times. Where do I come from, and what do I want to what do I want to show you today? So basically, what I am initially, long time ago, I'm an economics student, and somehow I drifted off into IT, and now I'm like trying to fake it till I make it, basically. So especially with software development, it has always been something that has interested me, but I didn't have the background for it, and I tried to ease into it, basically. So once I turned into the IT guy, or what got me into IT was basically SharePoint on-premise, which I did for at a company, and I did configuration in SharePoint. I always dabbled into CSS and a little bit of HTML and tried to fiddle around with it to improve SharePoint on-premise, which was a lot easier back then, or a lot easier to do, I guess, and you had more access to it in the on-premise world. But once we got to SharePoint Online, it was a lot more difficult, or also I didn't want to customize as much because obviously it's software as a service, so you don't want to customize too much and maybe have it break sooner or later. But what I did on the side is, and I always basically had the interest for a little bit of coding. So what I did for my culture club in my free time was build like a cash register where you can select different products, and it gets added up, so nobody has to do the math in their head. And you have like some kind of revenue where you can see how much was being sold and how many products were sold. So I did some stuff there with HTML, JavaScript, PHP, CSS. So it's more of a development job or a development thing that I did there. But it never happened on a professional basis. So during my job, I stuck to PNP PowerShell or basic scripting, basically, or list formatting with JSON, all of those things that can be done in the front end, but I never really went into the depths of SPFx. But what I always thought, at least, was, well, adaptive cards shouldn't be super hard to do, right? There's this framework. It's very well, not very simple mechanics behind it, but there's mechanics behind it that I understand from my experience with SharePoint and with Microsoft 365. And so I thought, why can I not do this? And I guess there was never really the time to do it, or never really the use case there for it, which changed in 2025, or beginning of 2025, where a secret use case appeared. And I don't know if David has a Pokemon battle sound effect on his soundboard, but maybe that would fit here. So 2025, we had like this use case from a customer that showed up, and basically they needed a Viva Connections dashboard card to link to a very specific website for each, or depending on the logged in user. So I'm going to illustrate here. Basically, they wanted to get to their department intranet homepage with as little clicks as possible from Viva Connections, or from the Viva Connections dashboard that you can enter into Teams. For everybody that doesn't really know how Viva Connections works, so usually you would connect it to your central hub in SharePoint, and that would be the central entry point here, the red box here, and that would be connected to Viva Connections, and then you would go there when you click on a thing, and you would go there. And you could create a card based on audience targeting that would send user A to department 1 and send user B to department 2, and so on. But in this case, it was quite difficult because we had a lot more than 50 departments. So first of all, there's like a limitation of how many cards you can put into Viva Connections. So using audiences was kind of not on the table. And you could also not use multiple experience, because it would be kind of a maintenance nightmare, right? Because you would have to change every dashboard every time you wanted to make a change, and it would kind of not work out, because all of the other contents on the dashboard should be the same for all of the users, right? So what did we think of, or what did I think of? I thought of well, maybe that's the time to show up and do my own thing and create maybe an adaptive card extension that just adapts depending on the department of the current user and sends them to a specific link. So how did I manage to do it, or what did I have going for me basically to start this endeavor? Obviously, I had a very strong SharePoint M365 background over the years built up. I did have my development, quote unquote, know-how from the early days when I built this cash register app for my club. And obviously these days you have the nice AI helpers like Copilot and ChatGPT, as I like to call it. But basically what I did basically was to ask them, hey, let me know how can I build an adaptive card? What do I have to do for it? And basically let me guide, let the AI basically guide myself through the process of creating this card. And I just figured out, okay, you can just very easily do it if you just follow the steps one by one. And that's also one of the big philosophies that I had behind it, or one of the principles that I had behind, which I also followed when I built my private cash register app, which was basically just start really small, start with one little thing, and then just add on to it. So you can always think of more stuff that you can do, but if you think of all of that stuff and want to do it right away from the start, it's quite difficult to implement like a huge project or to create a huge project without knowing the basic steps first. And so what I did was I just basically did iterations. I started with a very, very simple card that links just to a simple URL from a SharePoint list. So basically the card gets a SharePoint list and links to a URL that sits in a column. Then I try to display the department of the current user in the card. So basically just trying to find out how can I fetch the department or the user property, and how can I display it in the card dynamically. Then I went ahead and looked at the SharePoint list and said, okay, now I know what department the current user is from. I can get data from the list. So how can I filter this list and just retrieve the item that I want the user to see, or the data that I want the user to see? Then I went ahead and did the same thing for a picture, which then led me to card layouts, right? There's like a basic card layout and there's an image card layout, which gives you different options. So you're basically learning on the go and figuring new things out. And sometimes it means actually that you have to redo some things, because in the basic card, that one thing would work this way, but in the image card, you can't use it anymore. So you have to adapt and do other things. Then I chose to make the list and the site dynamic, so the list can be created anywhere. I decided to enable filtering based on the groups and not on the department, which I'm going to show in the demo. And then I did create some dynamic text tokens in the card, so it looks a little nicer and it can be adapted a lot easier by end users. And then of course you have to do some nice things in the end, like make it look nice, have some default values. Yeah, make it basically not production ready, but make it ready so it can be presented at least to somebody who doesn't care about software development and just wants to have the nice things at the end. Yeah, and then obviously one of the big things is you got to ship it to GitHub somehow, at least if you wanted to have it into the samples library, which obviously is very important. But AI also can help you with that, right? Copilot knows how to add to the repository in GitHub, and it can help you with it. Or you could just always come to the community calls and talk to the people here that can probably help you a lot better than I can, or than AI can. Yeah, so let me hop into the demo real quick and show you what I'm actually talking about. So basically, in the end, what we want to do is, and Anoop showed a picture of it actually. So in Viva Connections, we have these cards, and these cards basically just show some information. You can have even more information being shown, but I just wanted a basic card that acts as a quick link basically to redirect the user to a certain URL. And I'm going to show the code really quickly. I'm not going to show much of it because honestly, I did maybe like 70% of it. I didn't really write the lines of code, but I know what happens here. And the most important thing that maybe for somebody that's starting out and doesn't know what all of these things here do, which I myself actually don't, right? I know the three main objects that I have to edit, right? Which is the adaptive card extension, which is the property pane, right? The property pane is where you modify basically what properties you have in your card. And the adaptive card extension itself is basically just what happens in the back end. And then you have this card view, which basically is the front end, right? Which gets shown to the user. So these three elements in the code are basically the main things that have to be edited. And obviously there's some other stuff that might have to be edited, which AI helps you with that a lot, or helped me at least with a lot with it, because I'm not a software developer by trade. I don't know the whole project setup in Visual Studio Code. I just know what code does, and I can interpret what these functions do. For example, let's look at some of these functions. There's one function that gets the office location, which is it looks at the user and it gets the office location of the user. I don't know how to write this code, or I don't know the exact syntax, but I understand what it does. And if AI helps me to write it, then I can verify it and I can check, okay, yeah, this does what I want. And obviously, I'm not going to go as far and say, okay, AI can write the full code and we just ship it like that. But at least I know what I want from it, and I can verify at least some parts of the code. Then we have functions here like to get basically the user properties. We have a function here to get the group membership of a user, right? Because I implemented a function to get the department by, or basically show an URL based on group membership. And there's a function in here that does the filtering of the list by the office location of the user, right? And so there's just basic things, or there's functions that happen in here which I can understand. And as I mentioned with the building blocks or the building bricks, you just got to do them one by one and look at them. Same thing in the property pane, in the card view. I'm not going to bore you with VS Code anymore, but what happens in the end, or what comes out in the end, is basically just an adaptive card, which looks at a list. So I have a very basic list right here. It has a location, right? In this case, location Heilbronn. This is my hometown.
Hey,
and
hey, Lucas.
in my, yes.
Lucas, would you mind just zoom in on the webpage just a little bit?
Sure.
If you don't mind, thanks.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So in this case, in my profile, right, on my dev tenant, my working location is set to Heilbronn, which is the property that I'm calling from the user, right? So I'm looking at this first column. I'm looking, what's the entry here? It's called Heilbronn. Get me this URL, get me this image, and show it to the user. Yeah. So what do I have to do? I have to do some configuration, right? I have to say, where is this list? This list is on my dev site. What's the ID of this list, right? You can get it from the settings. You can get the ID from here. You can enter it here. And then you have this mode here. We can say, okay, I want to do it based on the office location, or I want to do it based on group membership. I'm not going to show this right here. You can read it in the documentation or in the README, which is because it's going to take too much time to show now. But you can change the title, of course, my location. You can have some description. You can add an icon. Say, for example, let's use a globe, and then you have like some default images that you can set here. And if I look at it in preview, then you can see, oh, now it shows my location, it shows the image, and if I click on it, I go to this URL, which is in the list, right? And that's the very basic use case that I want to realize. And one more thing that I wanted to show, right? There's this token that I implemented here. So go to, and I can just type a token in here, and it will be replaced with my location, right? And it's going to say go to Heilbronn in this case. Yeah. So this is basically how the card itself works, which is the demo part of the demo. And now I'm going to go back and just give you a few, like 2 last slides regarding challenges, right? So obviously this is not a super production ready enterprise solution, right? Because it's not built by a professional developer. I already fixed one of the issues where it was, if you were in too many groups, then it wouldn't filter correctly. So I had to redo the filtering with the group memberships. And there might be other issues like that, which I don't know of yet. Obviously, there's the risk of forgetting. And when I try to build my next adaptive card, right, I might have to start at square one or square 1.5 at least, and not know what I did in the past, because I'm not doing it on a daily basis. And obviously, it's mostly vibe coded, right, helped by AI, which some companies don't like, or some users don't like at all. But what did it do for me? Obviously, I built my first adaptive card extension. I learned very much, and it helps me in my daily consulting job as well, because I know how these things work now, and I can tell my customers, yeah, we can do that, or that can be done. We can build you a solution for that or not, and I can help them there. Obviously, it was very fast to prototype. And the solution is really flexible, right? You might not want to link to a department page. You might link to a menu plan or to a parking spot overview or whatever, which is dynamic based on location. So you can adapt it for very many things. And the key takeaways, I guess I don't really have to say too much to that. You can just read them yourselves. And I will hand over back to Chris. And thank you all for your attention. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find the sample in the repository. Let me know, and see you soon.